Hey everybody, Wayne here. In today's Let's Play, I'll be playing through a complete game of 1862 War in Virginia, designed by Mike Grant Wylie and published by Worthington Publishing. This is a solitaire war game simulating the various campaigns in Virginia and Maryland in 1862 of the American Civil War. You control the Confederacy, while the AI system, using a deck of cards, controls the Union. I'm going to go ahead and explain how the game works. It's a fairly simple game, so that won't take long. I'll then dive into the playthrough, and at the end, I'll give you guys a mini review instead of a separate review video. All right, let's get on the table for a closer look.
All right, I have everything all set up for a game of 1862 War in Virginia. Here is the deck of cards that we're going to be using. And actually what you do is you shuffle them up, which I've already done, and you go ahead and discard the top four, or any four from the deck, right? As long as you don't know what they are. That way every game you play, you're actually going to have a certain number of cards. So as you get more familiar with the types of cards and the events and what they do in the game, which I'm already starting to become familiar with because I've already played through this a whole bunch, I'm not going to know exactly which ones are going to be in my playthrough. Okay, so we'll set that aside. This deck is going to act as the number of turns we're going to play through, unless there's a sudden death victory, which the two sudden death victories are the Union captures Richmond, or I capture Washington, D.C. All right, so like I said in the intro, I will play as the rebels, and the system with the deck of cards will play as the Union. There are four tracks, all connecting. I shouldn't say all connecting. All of them do connect to Richmond. However, two of them connect to Washington, D.C. So you can look on the map here. We'll go ahead and look at the map, look at the little counters, and then we'll get started with the play. There's the Overland route, which goes from Washington, D.C., Manassas, Fredericksburg, North Anna, Hanover, then ends in Richmond. And the other one connecting Washington, D.C. to Richmond directly is the Valley. So Rockville, Harper's Ferry, Winchester, Harrisonburg, Charlottesville, and then Richmond. Probably recognize a lot of those names. And then the other two routes that come off the peninsula and then near the James River, both from Fort Monroe here, Norfolk, Suffolk, Smithfield, City Point, Petersburg, and Richmond, and Fort Monroe, Yorktown, Williamsburg, New Kent, Cold Harbor, and Richmond. Each of those is going to have an army. Now, you will see the Confederate Army, let's say, look up here. You can see Confederate Army in Winchester, and then Union Army in Harper's Ferry. The Confederate Army is really just a marker to show where we are. The Union Army does have a number. So when the game has the Union advance, they do not have to roll anything. They will just go ahead and advance. And then when I am attacking them during my attacks, I have to roll to defeat the army, whatever their strength is. So most of the armies, Peninsula Army is the strongest. Checking the bottom right here, Peninsula with 4. James Army is 3. Overland is 3. Valley is the weakest with 2. I will have a certain number of attacks each turn based on that action card that I draw. So the action card is going to have a name. It's going to have some flavor text. It's going to have an event. I'm going to do the Union advances, if there are any, and then I will do my attacks if there are any. At the end of that turn, after I've implemented everything on the card and I've conducted all my attacks, we will check to see how many areas and the value that they control. So by value, I just mean the number of areas in a certain area, or a certain track, excuse me. So for instance, right now, up in the Valley, you would say 3, being at Winchester, and you can see helpful, number 3 there. Add up each of the 4 tracks, and that's going to show the VP marker, where it is. That's my victory points. And then also the political pressure, is it leaning against Lincoln, or is it leaning against Davis? I will have reserves, reserve markers. Each one of these I can spend to conduct an additional attack that turn. Once they're spent, though, they are discarded. There are a couple cards that can bring reserves in, though. Also, Lee, he starts off on the sidelines, just as he did historically in the beginning of 1862. Remember, Joe Johnston was leading the Army of Northern Virginia, such as it was outside of Richmond. However, if at some point the VP marker falls to 8 or less, I get to get Lee, and I'll be able to place him with the army that's nearest Richmond. I add 2 reserves as well to the reserve box. I'll have him in play, and he has a +1 die roll modifier when I'm conducting offensive actions. And finally, Merrimack, or aka CSS Virginia. I don't know why it's listed as the Merrimack. Merrimack was what it was before the Confederacy rebuilt it. But anyway, the Merrimack here works against the James Army. So that is the only Union Army while the Merrimack is in place. So while it's in this box, when James is advancing, they actually have to roll. The Union has to roll against their own number to advance. Once Merrimack is knocked out of play by a card, then that they will no longer have to roll and they'll advance automatically. All right, again, we're going to run through the deck of cards. Unless there's sudden death victory, capture of either capital. Run through the cards, check the VPs at the end of each turn, and check the VPs at the very end, and see where we finish in 1862 War in Virginia. All right, I think it's enough of a overview. Let's get to this playthrough. Okay, first card, flip it over. Crossing the Potomac. Confederate armies moving across the Potomac into Maryland, a slave-owning state, expected to be welcomed by the population. They were surprised to be treated mostly as invaders. Also, Union armies confronted the excursions with great force. If the Confederate Valley Army is in Harper's Ferry or Rockville, it must retreat. Thankfully, we're just in Winchester, so we do not have to retreat. Union advance in the peninsula. So the Union Peninsula Army will go ahead and advance. By the way, McClellan he starts off with the Peninsula Army. So they go ahead and advance automatically to Yorktown, and they push our army back to Williamsburg. And then I get 2 Confederate attacks. I can attack anywhere I want, and I just roll a d6 and I try to defeat the value of that army. McClellan, he adds a 1 strength to the Peninsula Army, so instead of a 4, it's actually strength 5. So right now, without having any advantages, any pluses, say from Lee, I probably want to either attack a place like Valley, Overland, although obviously if the Peninsula Army gets too close to Richmond, I may want to attack it to push it back. For now, let's go ahead and let's start off, do one of our attacks against the Valley Army. So being that it has 2 strength, I just need to roll higher then, so a 3 or higher. A 5, so I push him back from Harper's Ferry to Rockville, and I go ahead and move up. And our last attack, let's do it against the Overland Army in Manassas. So first Battle of Bull Run, oh, not so good for the Confederacy this time. A 2, which is less than, so we're not successful. What you do then is you adjust the Confederate VPs and political pressure track. That is where you are, again, you can, change it as you go, or you can just kind of check the numbers, right? So a 4, 3 makes 7, 3 makes 10, plus 5 makes 15. So we mark it down to 15 here. Or I should say, keep it at 15. Okay, and then you discard that card, and you go ahead and keep drawing and repeat. All right, second card. I'm going to pick up pace of play a little bit. What I think I'm going to do for this strategy, for this game, I'm going to try to hold everywhere, which is probably not the right strategy, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to keep the Union Army pushed back as far as we can everywhere. We're not going to try a knockout blow to Washington, D.C. We're just going to try to keep pushing them back. And put the card over here. Siege guns. The Union Army had siege guns to reduce Richmond and force its surrender if they were able to get them close. During the campaign when they were near, but Confederate attacks forced them back. All right. Union, Overland, and North Peninsula armies adjacent to Richmond apply a +1 DRM to advance attempts into Richmond. Thankfully, no Union army is adjacent, so we do not have to worry about that. Union advances. Union armies adjacent to Richmond advance. Again, thankfully, there are none, so there'll be no Union advances, and we get 2 attacks, which I like to see. Let's go ahead and attack in the Valley again. So we need 3 or higher. All right, knocked him back to Washington, D.C. So now, here's how that would work. We have 1 more attack left. If we wanted, right, we could attack Washington, D.C. But here's the problem. When an army is in its capital, you're no longer attacking that army. So we wouldn't be attacking, the Army of the Valley here with its 2 strength. Because that'd be too easy, right? We're probably going to get higher than that, a 3 or higher, and we win. And we've used reserves for additional attacks, right? But when you're attacking a capital, move the army aside. See that number in there? That's the number you have to defeat. So for Richmond, it's 3. Washington, D.C., it's a 6. Well, how do you defeat a 6 with a 1d6? You have to roll higher then. You can't unless you have any DRMs, which would come from, say Lee, once he's in play. Or there's at least 1 card in the game, Jackson card, Stonewall Jackson card, that gives a +1. So if he was available, if we had that card, yes. Or if we had Lee in our army, yes. Otherwise, there's no point to continuing attacking because we cannot take Washington, D.C. with the army as is. Okay, but we still do have 1 attack left. So let's go ahead and attack the Overland Army here. So it's a 3, so we need 4 higher. A 2, so we fail there. And of course, before we draw the next one, we want to adjust the track here, which we gained 1 spot, so moves up to 16. If you look at the track here, and I don't know specifically if I don't remember if I covered it in my little overview, but if you look from the 13 and 18, they are gray. You move McClellan. So at any point, if you get a check the political pressure track, McClellan will move to the army that's closest to Washington, D.C. And then also if you see move Lee, the blue numbers, 8 to 1, at that point, if you check political pressure, that's when we'll get Lee, and he will go to any army that's closest to Richmond. Okay. Adjusted that, so next card. Pinkerton Intelligence. Alan Pinkerton's detective agency provided unit intelligence during the campaigns. They consistently failed to provide accurate estimates of Confederate forces and intentions. Yeah, that's true. All Confederate attacks on Union armies apply a +1 DRM. Ooh, that's good. So you do get a +1 DRM now. But it's on Union armies, not Washington, D.C. It does not help with Washington, D.C. because it's against Union armies. For the Union, advance the Union army furthest from Richmond. Ties, player's choice. Well, that would be the farthest away, and yep, that is it. Well, I guess James technically farthest from Richmond. So I can do either the James or I can do the Valley. The Valley is easiest to push back since it's weaker. Let's go ahead and do that one. So then move up. And I get 1 attack, plus I get a +1 DRM. So I just need to roll at least a 2. Oh, I got a 5 with the DRM, so I push the Valley back to Washington, D.C. All right, which that leaves the VPs the same. Next card. Stonewall Jackson. Attacks against the Union Valley Army or Washington, if adjacent, apply a +1 DRM. Thomas Stonewall Jackson was the most aggressive commander during the war, North or South. His campaigns in the Shenandoah Valley during 1862 were admired by both sides for their speed, fierce attacks, and success. All right, Union advances in Overland and the Peninsula. So here in Overland, they move from Manassas to Fredericksburg. In the Peninsula, they move up from Yorktown to Williamsburg. All right, now I have the Valley Army adjacent to Washington, D.C. I get a +1 DRM. And I have 2 Confederate attacks available along with my reserve, which allows me to launch additional up to 2 more if I want. So there'd be a potential 4 attacks to take Washington, D.C. I can't turn down this opportunity. This may be the shortest playthrough of this game that I've ever had, that's for sure. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We still have to roll. We still have to roll a 6 on a D6. All right, let's see what we can do. First attack, and yes, for Confederate attacks, first one, Valley Army with Stonewall Jackson. Going to attack Washington, D.C. +1. Remember, we need to get higher than a 6, so we need to roll a 6 and then 1d6. Let's see what we can do. Okay, that's only a 4. Not good enough. Second attack. Yep, we're attacking Washington, D.C. again. 5. Closer. Not quite there. So that's a 6. We're going to spend a Confederate reserve to launch a third attack. Discard the reserve. A 3 becomes a 4. Not looking too good here, but you know what? We've come this far, boys. Let's go ahead. We'll spend our final reserve, final Confederate reserve, attacking those fortifications around Washington, D.C. We need a 6. What do we get? Not a 6. We got a 3, becomes a 4. Not good enough. Stonewall Jackson and his army stopped at the walls of Washington, D.C. I thought we were going to take it there. I really thought we were going to. I was like, well, this game's going to end pretty quick. Oh, man. All right, well, not that happened. We just spent all our reserves trying to make that attack. Well, never mind. Change of strategy, I guess, right? Okay, so let's check the Confederate VP track. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14 total. So I'll drop this down to 14. Oh, my God. All right, that's it for that card. On to the next card. I can't believe that. I thought we were going to take Washington, D.C. and win within... That would have been on the 4th card. We would have won on the 4th card. All right, on to the next one. Let's go. Let's go, boys. Come on. Lincoln springs a trap. Oh, jeez, that wily president. Lincoln was frustrated with the progress of his armies in and near the valley. He directly ordered the commanders to maneuver to trap Jackson with multiple forces, which almost succeeded. If the Confederate Valley Army is north of Winchester, which it definitely is, retreat it. All right, retreat to Harper's Ferry. Union advance in Overland and Valley. So they're going to move us down. Fredericksburg to North Anna on the Overland. And the Valley, well, they go ahead and they take Harper's Ferry. And I get 2 attacks. Well, let's, we're getting a little close down here. So let's launch an attack against Overland Army here. Need a 4 higher. Need a 6, push him back. And let's go ahead and launch an attack against the Peninsula Army. We need to roll a 6, don't we? Because it's 4 plus 1 for McClellan. Becomes a 5, so we need to roll a 6. We'll try. A 5, not good enough. I don't know what I'm thinking. I can't roll 6s. I had 4 chances to take the capital, the federal capital, and I couldn't do it. Okay, calm down, Wayne. All right, next card. Oh, wait, let's check the VPs here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 12 total. Down there. Once it drops number to 8 and below, actually, at this point, we maybe want that so we can get Lee on the board. That may be good. All right, next card. McClellan's Confidence. McClellan grossly overestimated Confederate forces opposing his advances. These failures in intelligence affected McClellan's confidence and decisions when facing crises during the campaign. All Confederate player attacks against the Union Army that McClellan is with apply a +1 DRM. Ooh, that's good. That's in Peninsula. Union does advance in the Valley, so push us back. But we get 2 attacks. Let's use them on the Peninsula for sure. So we get a +1 DRM, so instead of having to roll a 6, we just have to roll a 5. 5 or higher. First one pushes them back to Yorktown. Beautiful. And we'll do an attack again. Okay, not good enough, but at least we pushed them back a little. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 5. That's 12. Yep, still at 12 VPs. Next card. Emancipation Proclamation. After the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all slaves in the states of the Confederacy. This provided an inspiring cause to the Union. Check political pressure map. Oh, track, excuse me. That's where I wanted it down here, so I could have got Lee. So we check it. It's neither with move McClellan or move Lee. It's right in this neutral area, so there's going to be no effect from the track. Confederate attacks this turn apply a -1 DRM. Ugh. Union does advance in the Valley. So they take Harrisonburg and Overland. They take North Anna. I get 2 attacks with a -1. So because of that, let's stick to the weaker armies. So let's attack the Valley. The -1, so I actually need a 4. 4 higher. I got a 4. Perfect. Moving back. And let's attack Overland Army. I need a 5 or higher. 3. I almost had a 5. All right, check VPs. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 5 down there. So 11. All right, next card. Mountain passes. Jackson's Valley Army escaped through the mountain passes frequently and would surprise Union armies on both sides of the mountains between the Valley and the Overland routes. Confederates may choose to use mountain passes. If so, roll a die and apply the results. 1 to 2, I retreat my Valley Army. 4 to 6, retreat the Union Army. Oh, Overland Army, yeah. We're definitely going to do that. So let's go and roll. 3, retreat Union Overland Army. Cut them off. They go back to Fredericksburg. Thank you very much. And I get, Union advances, of course. Don't forget that on the James. I feel like this is the first James one. So they are trying to advance on the James. However, the Merrimack, Virginia, is here, and it will fire on them. So technically, they have to roll. So they're going to go ahead and roll against their own army strength. So they have to get a 4 or higher to advance. And a 5, so they do advance. And they push us back to Suffolk. All right, we get 1 army attack. Well, looking around. Let's do against Overland, I guess. So 4 or higher. 2, no good. All right, check VPs. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 4 becomes 11. Yeah, so stay at 11. Okay. All right, next card. Second Bull Run Battle. Manassas, Virginia. There's. And Bull Run Creek was not a kind place to Union armies. Beaten badly in 61 and then again in 1862, it forced the recall of McClellan and much of his army from the peninsula. Confederates may choose to do this battle. If so, roll a die and apply results. Yeah, we're definitely going to do it. Definitely going to do it. 6. Retreat Union Peninsula Army. Beautiful. Back to Fort Monroe. That I liked. That was a good roll. Union does advance in Overland and the Valley. And we get 2 attacks. Well, definitely want to attack in the Valley. Push them back. 3 or higher. Okay. And let's do Overland. 4 or higher. Okay. Push them back to Fredericksburg. Okay. All right. Next card. Jeb Stuart. Raids by Confederate cavalry on Union supply points disrupted their operations. Sure did. Roll a die. A result of 1 to 3, no effect. 4 to 6, retreat the Union army closest to Richmond. Ooh, so no downside. Well, we're rolling on it. A 1, no effect. Dang it, Jeb. Union advances, Valley and James. So Valley, they push us back to Richmond. Ooh. And James will attempt to advance. They have to roll against their army strength, remember? A 1, so they do not advance there. And then I get 2 attacks. First one, definitely attack in the Valley, so 3 or higher. Boom. Push them back. And let's keep attacking in the Valley. 5, push them back to Winchester. Beautiful. All right, check VPs. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Force 12. So VPs move at 12. There we go. Next card. Antietam Battle. The Union responded to the Confederate Army's movements north of the Potomac with large forces. The outnumbered Confederates fought them at Antietam, where more men fell in battle on one day than any battle in the Civil War, and it was called the bloodiest day. If Confederate armies are adjacent or 2 locations from Washington, roll 1 die. 1, 2, 1, 2. Nope. Union advances on the James, so they will roll. 4 or higher. Oh, good. Good for me. And I get 1 attack. Let's attack here. Actually, let's attack in the Valley. Second Valley. 3 or higher. 3 or higher. Yeah, pushing back Harper's Ferry. The Valley's an easy. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit because the weakest army, right? Next card. Oh, I pushed him back 1, so VPs go up. Next card. Halleck takes command. First off, check the political pressure track. Move McClellan. So McClellan, sitting on the peninsula, he will move to the army closest to Washington, which 1, 2, 1, 2. That's player's choice between which one. Which I'll put him with the Valley Army because that's kind of the, well, should I put him with Overland because I'll put him with the Overland Army. I think that'll work. I think it'll be fine. What do you guys think? Oh, sorry. Forgot I'm filming. It's not live. All right. He's going with them, and that's my final answer. All right. Halleck took charge as the overall Union commander when McClellan struggled with those responsibilities while leading field armies. Halleck, like McClellan, was cautious. He was also obsessed with protecting Washington. Oh, yeah, so either way, makes sense. Union advances. Any Union army in or adjacent to Washington advances. Well, none are, so that's good for us. And then I get 1 attack. Let's attack in the Valley. 3 or higher, 3 or higher. Boom. Push him back to Rockville. I like that. All right, next card here. 7 Days Battles. The 7 Days Battle near Richmond, 7 Days Battles near Richmond was risky for the Confederates. They brought Jackson's army from the Valley and launched a series of attacks that caused high losses for both sides, but forced a Union retreat. Confederate player may choose to do these battles, all or none. If so, roll a die for each battle, applying a result with the Confederate Peninsula Army as follows. Well, I got them pinned back in Fort Monroe, so I have no worries, so I am not going to do it because I have nothing to gain from it. Okay, Union does advance in the Valley. And I get 1 attack. Well, we're going to attack him in the Valley. 5. Push him right back to Rockville. Get back. Get back. All right, no change in VPs then. Next card. Valley Battles. Oh, here we go. Stonewall Jackson's small Valley Army had success with hit-and-run movements and battles against larger Union forces. Their success kept significant Union troops tied down in the Valley and away from Richmond, and in Washington. All right, the Confederate player may choose to do these battles, all or none, just like the 7 Days Battles. If so, roll a die for each battle, applying the result with the Confederate Valley Army as follows. Well, I can only push them back 1, but I still do like that idea anyway. So let's go ahead and do that. Kernstown, 1 to 2 is an advance, 3 to 6 is a retreat. Okay, so that's a retreat. That's all right. We see 2 successes. McDowell, 1 to 3 advance, 4 to 6 retreat. Okay, that's a retreat. That's not good. Let's just get back to where we were. So Winchester, 1 to 4 advance, 5 to 6 retreat. That's a retreat also. What's happening? And Port Republic, 1 to 4 advance, 5 to 6 retreat. Are you kidding me? We just got pushed back to Richmond. Oh, God bless Dice. They love me. Let me tell you guys. All right, well, Union advances on the peninsula. Great, that's great news too. And I get 1 attack. I obviously 1 attack in the valley. 3 or higher. What? Okay, so check VPs here. 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 total. Drops all the way to 9. Well, at this point, 1 less. We can try to get Lee out here at some point. All right, next card. Western Disaster, New Orleans. The fall of New Orleans in 1862 closed the lower Mississippi to the Confederates. Union success out west affected resources available for Confederate forces in Virginia. Check political pressure track, which we are at 9. If we were at 8 or lower, we'd get Lee. That's really upsetting. We need him. We need him at this point. Lee, please save us. Remove 2 reserve counters from the Confederates. Ha! Joke's on you. Jackson already burned those up trying and failing to take Washington, D.C. Union advances in Valley and Overland. So they are going to try to advance in the Valley, which means they are going to try to take Richmond. For them to advance into Richmond and take Richmond, they now have to roll. They have to roll higher than a 3 with any modifiers. There are no DRM modifiers for them, so they're just going to go ahead and roll their die. And if they get 4 or higher, they take Richmond, and the game ends in a sudden death loss, with the Union capturing Richmond much earlier than happened historically. So 4 or higher, Union wins, and I lose. You know, I could have used that 6 like 12 cards ago when I was attacking Washington, D.C. So apparently the 6 was hidden in the blue die. I was using the gray die, and the gray die apparently is no good right now. So the Union Valley Army captures Richmond in a surprise, and the Confederacy loses the war earlier than they historically would have, and the Western Disaster turns into Eastern Disaster, which turns into the end of the American Civil War, which in reality is not such a disaster for the war to end. All right, that is 1862 War in Virginia. You just saw it in action. You just saw what could happen. The swings almost took Washington, D.C. I can't believe I couldn't roll a freaking 6. And then the Valley Army comes down, and with 1 roll, they get, they got a 6. They only needed a 4, but they got a 6 anyway, just to rub it in. All right, I'm going to take a minute to pause, collect my thoughts, cry a little bit. And then when we come back, I will give you a quick review of the game. Kind of do like I normally would do. Pros, cons, final thoughts. And we'll do cons first. All right, so what don't I like about the game? Things I don't like, or maybe would like to be a little different. It is very lucky. It's very swingy. I mean, and you saw a game, right? Now, that was actually fun. So that luck and swinginess in this particular game actually worked out really well, and it was really fun. Well, fun is a different term when you get your butt kicked at the last minute. But what I mean by that is, the game doesn't have a lot of player agency at times. So, you are flipping a card. It's telling you, it's going to be a random event that happens. You're going to advance a Union army. You don't get to it advances. You have no ability to stop it. And then you get a number of attacks, and the attacks are you're rolling a die, and that's happening, and that's it. There's not a lot of deep strategy to it, right? You kind of have 2 ways to win. Those are going to be capture Washington, D.C., or keep your VPs up, which basically means holding as much ground as you can, as much territory as you can. That's it, And so if you are rolling poorly or the cards are falling a certain way, it's just going to preordained exactly what's going to happen. There's no way for you to make up anything. And there's not a lot of things you can do other than there's Confederate reserves, which allow you an extra die roll, right? Each one of those gives you an extra attack. So basically, you start off the game with a couple reserves, and then there's a few more in the game that you could potentially have based on cards and then Lee coming in. But once those are used up, that's it. You have no other. It's just whatever the cards say, that's what you have. Secondly, with Lee, I just played a whole game. You guys saw, and I'll admit it was kind of fun. But even with the heartbreak, but Lee never came into play. So the whole game, Robert E. Lee, the really, let's be honest, what kept the Confederacy in the war as long as it did was Robert E. Lee, to a large part. He didn't even come into my game at all. So I never got his +1 DRM. I never got to even try to put him out and find where he would go and maybe, advance with that army and all these things. I never got a chance to because the way it worked, the VPs never dropped to the 1 to 8 where Lee would enter the game. Now you can argue that's historical, right? The only way he's going to enter, the only way he would have entered, the reason he did enter was, well, really it was because Joe Johnston also got hurt. So you can't really, there's a card for Joe Johnston in here, which we'll cover the cards in a second. But anyway, it'd be nice to have a way to have Lee enter the game more than just, hey, the VP's got to be 1 through 8, right? Okay, those are the couple things that I just, maybe a little bit more player agency and maybe another way to get Lee into the game. All right, what did I like? I like a lot of it. I love the component quality, super high quality. A little bit on the negative. The board doesn't lay 100% flat. I assume because it's got 8 panels and they're small. It's in such a small board, so it doesn't lay 100% flat. That bugged me at first. I've been playing it now, I don't even know, a dozen games, if not more, and I don't even notice it anymore. So it doesn't matter to me. But that could be nicer. But the quality of the components. All these individually die cut. Nice mounted. The artwork's beautiful. The artwork on the cards is fantastic. And the cards just look really good. Look at these cards. The ones that have the battles are the most boring, and that's because they basically just have to include a whole bunch of information. But everything else has historical, pictures and artwork. Just absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely love them. And they're very clear, easy to read as well, easy to follow. So the components themselves, great. I always expect that from Worthington at this point, but it's nice to see in such a small box travel game that they're still keeping up with these really deluxe components. Continuing on with what I like, I like the feel of it. It's a States of Siege, but very simplified. It kind of goes back to almost the roots of States of Siege, right? Very flip a card, resolve a couple things, you get a couple attacks, all right, on to the next, right? Very sort of original States of Siege, and that's okay. Small box, not as expensive, small play area, still getting nice really beautiful components, and you're good to go. So really like the actual gameplay itself. Outside of, again, a little bit more player agency would be nice, but I like how quick it plays also. So tied into the gameplay, love how fast it plays. You can either try to capture Washington, try to keep Richmond from being captured if you can, or you can try to hold everyone back and run through the cards. But even you're running through the cards, we went through this many, and there is this many left. So we were, 2/3 of the way through this game. And this is a learning game, or a video game, or a recorded game, right? A recorded playthrough. So I was taking my time, I was explaining things, and I'm still going pretty fast. So imagine you've now played a couple yourself, it's just you playing, you're going to fly through games, even if you go through the entire deck. Speaking of deck, another thing I really like is the fact that you discard 4 of them, right? So you don't know exactly what's in here. So in my case, the 4 that I didn't have, a Union McClellan Expires card, so Inspires, helps them. Shenandoah Valley one, which would help me. Fair Oaks Battle, and then a Rappahannock River, 2 that are more likely to help the Union. So slightly favored me by getting rid of 3 cards that favor the Union and 1 that favored me. So, and that's the stripe at the top, right? If it's blue, it favors the Union. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed, it just favors. Gray favors the Rebels. Okay, I think that's it for my pros and cons. So, final thoughts. Is it worth it? Should you pick it up? here's the deal. If you watched my playthrough, you saw how things went down, and you heard me talking, and you say, that sounds like I'd be interested in that game, Wayne, then yeah, you should definitely pick it up. If you think, it sounds a little too luck-based, I don't know if I want to spend that money, maybe you live overseas, international, you don't live in the United States, and so the games would be more expensive on the more expensive side for what you get, maybe you don't. Maybe you take a second look at it. But if you like the theme, which for such a simple game really does shine through very well, and you love the look of it, I mean, from the map to the artwork on here, the artwork on the cards, the look of the cards, the look of the game, I just think it looks fantastic. Easy to play, quick to play, sequence of plays right on the board if you need it, but I mean, literally as soon as you play half a game, you've got the sequence of play basically memorized. Yeah, I highly recommend it if it looks interesting and you don't mind a simpler style game, something that you can take traveling, as it's a travel game from Worthington, or you can throw on your own table. I don't take my games traveling. Even when I do travel for work or whatever, I never bring a game with because I've got something else going on, right? It's either my family or it's work related. But even at home, this can be a fun one to bust out. You can bust out ahead of or on a smaller table. Maybe you have a big game on your main table, You get a Most Fearful Sacrifice out or something, but you also want to have a little bit of a Civil War game. You can plan to play a lot quicker. You can get 1862 War in Virginia and scratch that itch. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that playthrough and mini review at the end. As always, I appreciate the subscriptions. I appreciate any thumbs up, and I definitely appreciate the comments. Let me know what you guys think of my video and of this game in the comments below. And until next time, everybody, later.